Welcome to the Prepped and Polished podcast, the podcast that empowers you to take control of your education, featuring weekly interviews with influencers in the world of education, as well as tutoring tips, lessons, and updates. And now, here's your host, Alexis Avila.
And welcome back to the Prepped and Polished podcast. This is episode 104. Be sure to join our community. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Instagram, YouTube. Just type Prepped and Polished. Also go to our site, preppedandpolished.com, for more info and sign up for our free ACT essay course. The ACT essay has changed. We help you with that for free. On the front page of our site, go to preppedandpolished.com. Have a question or reaction during or after this podcast? Submit your question or radio at preppedandpolished.com. Today is episode 104, and I'm talking to Tutor and writer of the successful Tutor blog, The Tutor Coach, formerly known as The Tutor House. On today's episode, Adrianne Meldrum shares her amazing story of how she went from an unemployed teacher to starting a wildly successful website that provides resources for tutors, parents, and students. If you're looking for a free lesson plan for your child or considering starting your own tutoring business, then this episode is a must listen. Now let's get right to our guest. This is episode 104 with Adrianne Meldrum of The Tutor Coach. Adrianne, thanks for coming on the Prepped and Polished podcast. How are you today?
Doing well. How about you?
Hanging in there. Thank you. So can we start out by you sharing with us a little bit about your background, focusing on some pivotal moments that led you to where you are today, really as a blogger for a hugely successful tutoring blog for tutors and professionals, The Tutor House.
Sure. So in 2011, I was in my 5th or 6th year of private tutoring. It was just me tutoring. And I was always looking for resources online during that time. And teacher blogs were just becoming popular. And one of the teachers I followed was Jen Rundy of Rundy's Room. And she mentioned that she was giving away tickets to this thing called a Teacher Blogger Conference. And I had never heard of such a phrase. So I was intrigued and I signed up, and it spurred me to start a blog, but it was not the Tutor House. That year I started my first blog, which was called Kids Cog Works. But soon I discovered, I really didn't have a real voice or audience since I wasn't in the classroom. I was just trying to share general teaching ideas, but realized, my stuff works best with individual children and not in the classroom. And so I went too broad with my first blog instead of narrow. But a fellow blogger, friend, and mentor, Laura Kilmer, she encouraged me to maybe try writing just for tutors, but there was really no one doing that. And so by the end of 2011, I switched, and the Tutor House was born. But, it took me a lot of years to figure out what tutors wanted to read about and what kind of help they really needed. I knew what I wanted, but it didn't always equate to what they wanted. And I don't feel like I really found my way meeting their needs probably till 2014. But in that time, I've built up a large audience of teachers and tutors, retired teachers, and just folks switching careers. And it's been a roller coaster and continues to be one. In fact, you've kind of caught me, Alexis, right in the middle of another pivot. And I haven't even mentioned this to hardly anyone. So you're getting exclusive information right now. So the Tutor House is going to go through a transition and change to another name, the Tutor Coach. And over the last 2 years, more and more tutors have been viewing me more as their coach. And if you could take a peek in my inbox, you could see what I mean. And this year, I needed to add some new functionality to the Tutor House website. And I was honestly feeling discouraged because it was just a mess on the back end. And no joke, I Googled, why is my site such a mess? An article shows up that mentioned what the author referenced as, technical debt. And in my effort to do most things free or maybe on the cheap, I created a site that, in essence, on the back end, looked like a NASCAR. It was awful. So that terminology, technical debt, I couldn't agree more with that. That is exactly how I was feeling. And so I kind of felt frustrated by the choices I had made and knew I had a big mess to clean up. I mean, a big mess. When I needed to add the functionality, it was going to break a lot of things. And so a good friend of mine, Jenny, posed a question to me and said, well, what if you could declare technical bankruptcy and start over? How would that affect your business and your website? And that's kind of spurred me to think deeply about that. And then I decided, this is probably just as good a time as any to make this change. And I feel like anytime you can change your business to clearly state how your audience already sees you, you just can't go wrong with that decision. And so here towards the new year, you'll see that the Tutor House will switch over to the Tutor Coach. I'll still keep the Tutor House, and I have plans for it, but nothing's solidified yet. And that's kind of a big overview of what's been going on since 2011 to today.
That's amazing. And, obviously you really listen to what the needs are, and you've built a very successful blog based on that. So I give you kudos for that.
Thank you.
And I'm really excited to check out the Tutor Coach when that launches. But tell us about the Tutor House now. Who is the site for? I know you kind of touched on it a little bit, but what types of things will we find on it?
Sure. So the Tutor House, or soon to be the Tutor Coach, is for anyone who's interested in learning about teaching or tutoring individual students, as well as those who want to learn how the business side of it, making money on the side, or even as a full-time income. I've got both of those audiences covered. We talk a lot about both. They both require different kinds of commitment. But on the Tutor House, you'd find lots of in-depth blog posts about the basic subjects like math or reading. But mainly over the past year, I've been writing more and more about the business side of tutoring because that's the kind of questions I get on a consistent basis. And so I provide resources, too, that help take the hurdles out of running a tutor business. Tutors have such big hearts that it can get in the way of making any real headway in their business, no matter what the size is. They have a hard time being firm with people and setting boundaries, and I do too. In fact, you should check out a blog post I wrote about boundaries. It really resonated with people. It's hard to say no, it's hard to stick to your policies, and so this is a problem for us, and I wanted to create resources to help tutors be stronger, because I needed it too. For example, I have a product that helps tutors avoid headaches that come with those first few years, and it's called the Tutor Business Framework. It has policies, it helps you write those, and they look professional in the end. It has an ebook, it has videos that teach you how to avoid pitfalls like pricing yourself wrong, and then, but my favorite part is you get access to a private Facebook group, and we're a really close-knit group of tutors. And then this year, though, however, if you come over, you'll see that I've added a group coaching program in response to requests from tutors that are curious about learning how to tutor online, teach your students remotely. So I teamed up with my friend Angela Coley, and we created a program called the Online Tutor System, and we just wrapped up our first group this week, in fact. And we've helped tutors over the past 10 weeks get the practice and skills they need to feel confident about tutoring online. So many of them were nervous about the technology side and the tech issues that do arise. And so we provided a space for them to practice and get the confidence that they were looking for. And it's turned out great, and we have plans to run it again every spring and fall. And so when you come over to Tutor House, ultimately you're going to find lots of free things for you to read and apply and try in your own business. But you'll also find some things that are more advanced that help you expand your business and your offering.
It's amazing. Now, I have one question about online tutoring. What have you learned works best to overcome the hurdle of not being able to see your students' work? Like you know what I'm saying? Like go over his shoulder and kind of like see how he's doing the steps. If you're working via online, like what's one way to overcome that? Do you know?
Well, I think what we've coached most of our students to do is find a way that you feel comfortable and really think about that. How could I do that? Mm-hmm. We talked about when you first have a student come online, you want them to jump in and start learning how to use those tools with you so that they have control over the drawing tool as well, so they can write out their thought process for you to provide that over-the-shoulder experience.
Nice.
I prefer, this is my personal preference, but every tutor has their own preferences when it comes to online tutoring software. I like to have one that has a camera as well, a video for the students and for me, so I can watch for anxiety type tips when they're sighing a lot, or I'm watching their shoulders kind of creep up towards their ears. I know that they're getting a little bit stressed out about what we're doing. So those are typically the things that we encourage them to do and find ways to communicate clearly. So a student could, let's say, submit a question that they've had, and they could take a picture of the work they've done. Obviously, this requires planning on the student's part. They got to think ahead a little bit, but submit the question ahead of time, and then you can pull it into your whiteboard software and look at the problem together and do that kind of over-the-shoulder kind of tutoring that you were talking about.
That's awesome. Now, what are a couple surprises that you learned over the last few years about the tutoring industry?
I think that's a great question. Really, my first reaction is there are not enough tutors out there. Really, I feel like we need more. This year, my own private business, I had to cut back significantly with my student base because my family, the ages that we're at, we are just super busy in the afternoons, and so I'm trying to move everything online for my own private business. But what I discovered that made me really sad about pulling back is I didn't have anyone to refer these kids to. Everyone I knew was full, and so they were stuck. And of course, they suggested online tutoring. I had plenty of people to send them to, but many of my students were hesitant and scared to try that route. And so I guess that was my first surprise about the tutor industry is we just need more. We really do. It's such an underserved market, and I just wish I had more. My heart aches every time I think about it. So the other thing that I find interesting is that even though it may feel like there's thousands of tutors out there vying for the same students, I would argue that is not true. We're really not competing with each other. We need each other. And I've always reached out to other tutors who have specialization, like they tutor dyslexia, or they're excellent at pre-calculus. And so I want to have other contacts with other tutors so I can better serve my students. And so when I see other tutors, I don't view them as competitors. I'm happy they're there. I need them to be there. And so for me, I feel like that's kind of the beauty of the Tutor House. We come together and we help each other get answers, and we share student needs, and we help each other grow. But another shocking big surprise about the industry is how fast tutoring services come online and leave. And
wow.
I think since 2011, I've watched a lot of people come on and leave and come on and leave. And I think it just boils down to it's just hard to run a business. Yeah. I think many people underestimate the amount of time and money and resources it takes to run a tutoring business. Whether you're serving students or you're serving tutor business owners, especially if you have a goal of owning a large tutor business of some sort, it's so draining on your time and resources. And honestly, the Tutor House wouldn't be here without my in-person tutoring income. I've poured almost all of it back in so I could keep helping tutors. And I needed the Tutor House to keep going personally because I was craving the connectivity to tutors as much as they were craving it from me. And I've learned mountains from them. And so, tutors are just inspiring people, and I want to be around them. And so I think that surprises me that so many companies come online and they reach out to me, and then before I know it, they're gone. And it's unfortunate that I've watched so many people come on and leave and come on and leave. And so I really would love to see more people in it for the long haul.
Yeah, I hear you. And oh man, so many of your points resonate. I mean, I've been tutoring for like 16 years, and from the beginning, I just noticed how isolated tutors are from one another, and sometimes very competitive. Like it's almost like they don't want to give up. They feel like they have to have world domination when it comes to students. But I always saw a complete opportunity for, tutors to actually brainstorm and get together and feed each other ideas. So, I mean, I'm just so glad you're doing something like this. It's fantastic. Tell us a little bit about your podcast. When does it air? What do you talk about on it? What will we learn?
So I have a podcast called Ask the Tutor, and I run it in seasons. And so right now I'm off season, and so I need to finish up switching the Tutor House over to the Tutor Coach. But anyways, in my podcast, what I typically do is I take questions from tutors and answer them myself, or I like to invite other experts to help answer. And we talk about business stuff, but we also talk about stuff that pertains to your students, stuff that can be hard to figure out, like assessment. And then we even talk about the nitty-gritty stuff of maybe your website, or should I start a blog, or how do I find images for my website? It's just a wide variety of questions. I can't think of very many that I've turned away. So if anyone listening wants to ask a question and have it featured, you can always go to askthetutor.com and submit your question, and I try to do my best to answer those. And I'm looking to starting the podcast up again here soon.
Awesome. And that podcast episode where to find good free images, I listened to that. That was a good episode.
Oh, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Okay, well, you already kind of elucidated on some of the stuff you're working on now, but any other projects that you're currently working on?
Well, let's see. So I talked about the online tutor system. The other interesting thing I'm adding is more one-to-one tutor coaching opportunities. Like I said, it makes me sad how many people are vulnerable to quitting before it's really time to quit. And so people had I shouldn't say bothered, asked me in the past to coach them, but really I wasn't in a place in my life. I still had little ones at home during the day. Coaching was difficult to do. Yeah. But this year that's changed, and I've started taking coaching, into my daily routine, and I help tutors. And so in a coaching session, typically what we do is we look at your financials and your current student load, and then we talk about what kind of marketing efforts can we do and make plans to adjust them so you can make more money and keep it in your pocket, but ultimately keep serving students. Like I said, I'm just super concerned about that. We tutors tend to make some decisions that they jump too quick, and so I'm kind of here to blow the whistle on that and say, let's rewind and try again, and let's make these different changes. And so, but the other projects that you'll probably see me working on in my own private tutoring, I'm going to be moving more online and probably adding other tutors to work with me, because the truth is I only have so many hours in the day. And so I would love to train some other tutors to work right alongside with me so we can serve more students together. So those are kind of the things you'll see going on in the Tutor Coach this year. Lots and lots of articles. I've got my year planned out, lots of great content coming this year, from businesses to teaching certain topics. We've got all kinds of guest posts lined up. It's going to be a great year.
Sweet. And how can we best get in touch with you?
Well, I'm active on my Facebook page. You can always message me there. But you can seriously email me as well. I do get quite a bit of emails every day, and I do my best to answer them personally, but sometimes they do pile up. But if people really want to get in touch with me, they can email me at hello@thetutorcoach.com, and then also find me at the Tutor House or at the new website here soon, thetutorcoach.com.
Awesome. And for those teenagers listening to us today, crossing that bridge to young adulthood, any words of wisdom?
Sure. Two things came to mind. Let's see. So I feel like it's never too late to learn. A phrase I use often with my students when they feel hopeless about a topic, I say to them, you haven't learned it yet. And the word yet allows room to breathe. This is a tip I learned from a tutor, actually, that guest blogs on the Tutor House. This one little word, yet, allows you to have a growth mindset instead of just settling for where you're at. It relieves the pressure, if you will. But my second tip would be, if you find that you're struggling with the same stuff over and over as a student, you have what I call a skip in your record, and you should be open to getting a tutor. Tutors are uniquely trained to help the individual, and many of them are interested in getting at the heart of the issue, not just providing like a temporary bandage or providing more of the same. They really cater to you and your needs. But if the skip that I'm talking about seems to affect all subjects, let's just say maybe your skip is you really struggle with organization, you might want to look at meeting with someone that's called an educational therapist. They're trained with all sorts of brain issues like executive functioning or ADD, working memory, or learning disabilities like dyslexia. And these are the things that affect you no matter what subject you're studying. So you'd want to look for someone that can help you make impact everywhere in school. And really, I just want kids to know that tutors are just interested in helping you do the best you can. And it's a great decision to have someone be there on your side, coaching you and helping you as you go.
Awesome. And before I let you go today, is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience?
Sure. 2 items, if that's okay.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So for the younger kids that may be listening, if you're needing help from a tutor, I hope you'll consider online tutoring. I think it's a great way to get help. You don't have to leave home. It's all from the convenience of your house. I've got a list of a bunch of tutors that we've trained in the online tutor system, and the past few months I've been working with these tutors, and I can tell you they're just top-notch people. I compiled a list of these tutors for you to look at, and no emails needed to view the list. You just go over to my website and see the document. And I'll have that up here soon at thetutorcoach.com/list. And then if you are listening and you are interested in maybe learning about the field of tutoring, I hope you'll come over to the Tutor Coach website and just dig right in. Right now, I have live on the homepage. I've got a free guide on the homepage all about getting more students and the tips have worked for hundreds of other tutors. So if you're interested in that, head over to thetutorcoach.com and check out that guide. You can't miss it. It's right there on the homepage.
Fantastic. Adrianne, thanks for coming on the Prepped and Polished podcast, and appreciate your time.
Oh, thanks for having me, Alexis.
And this wraps up our show today with Adrianne Meldrum of the Tutor Coach. Make sure to check out Adrianne's blog and website, www.thetutorcoach.com, to get free educational resources for your tutoring business and your child, and all the info you need to start your own tutoring business. I hope you enjoyed episode 104. Episode 105 is coming soon. Our next tutoring tips episode, how to get an 800 on your SAT 2 math test. Thank you for joining us on the Prepped and Polished podcast. Now go out there and take control of your education.
You've been listening to the Prepped and Polished podcast. For more information, check out preppedandpolished.com. Also, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening. Class dismissed.